Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, Episode 5. I believe it is properly pronounced Starbase 80. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Star Trek Lower Decks. So I have to start with the spoiler warning for Lower Decks up to Season 5, Episode 5. If you have not seen up to this point, you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. So, I've never been a huge fan of Starbase 80. I don't hate it as much as I hate, the fact that everyone sleeps in the corridors or whatever, or in the hallway, instead of the corridors. Like, anyone that's seen my channel before know I went on rants about how ridiculous that is, that wouldn't exist in a post-scarcity society that Starfleet and the Federation are. And I kind of feel the same way about Starbase 80, but to a lesser degree. Like, I don't buy there would be this phantom starbase that everyone is like, it's seen as the ass end of the galaxy, and everyone's there seen like creepy or stupid, and everyone's like desperately doesn't want to go there. But it's Lower Decks, and I'm willing to give Lower Decks more leeway than many other Star Trek shows because a lot of it is predicated on the comedy. So I was willing to go with it when I saw the title of this episode. Now, I do like how the end result was, hey, these people aren't that bad, they're just misunderstood, and it's a place where people can go to get a second chance. So that's cool. I'm with it. But several things. First of all, it was totally predictable. Like, I predicted where the plot was going very early on. That it was going to be about, let's say maybe 5 minutes through the episode, that it was going to end up being about how Starbase 80 isn't all that bad and how they're not actually the cause of the problem. Mariners freaking out over nothing, and they're going to end up liking them and getting along and being like, you guys aren't so bad. Like, that was so damn obvious and a little cliche, I might even say, that they would go in that direction. But I still took some enjoyment out of it. Didn't say it wouldn't bad episode, even though that's it was totally predictable that was the direction they were going. I do kind of like that they did go in that direction. I do think it's kind of needed if you're doing an episode about Starbase 80, and it was. That would be the only way to take an episode about it, is you would have to reveal that they're just misunderstood and that everyone is treating them poorly. I do like, though, the gag about how whenever anyone mentions Starbase 80, it's a Starbase 80, and that's why it had the question mark in the title. And I will say that opening, I think the teaser, as they called before the opening credits, to me was the funniest part of the episode. I was a little bit let down that the rest of the episode wasn't as funny. Like, you did have some funny moments, but I think that teaser was definitely the funniest, with Boimler trying to get his wetsuit off, and Mariner's like, oh yeah, we're the greatest or whatever, and oh no, I'm being more like Boimler, and Boimler's like, you mean awesome like him, and just smacks his head with the wetsuit. It was kind of funny. And then when they went to the bridge and they get to start, they said they had to get a Starbase 80, and Mariner starts freaking out and being like, oh, Boimler's like, oh, well, we could go to D Space 6, but it'll take us 400 years to get there. And she's like, let's do that. And how she's over freaking out, and when they decide to go, she's like, no, not Starbase 80. And then Ransom's just like, are you going to do that the whole way? So that was funny. I think that those were the funniest parts of the episode for me. But here's the thing with Mariner, because they mentioned several times in this episode that she was assigned to Starbase 80, and that's when she resigned And it's because she was being treated unfairly by her crew. They all didn't trust her and thought she was the one that sold them out, and they sent her to Starbase 80 as a punishment. But here's the thing. Even though they reference it several times that she served there, she doesn't seem to know anything about the station. She doesn't seem to know the commander. Now, granted, it's possible the commander was assigned there after Mariner served there, but she seemed pretty familiar with Starbase 80. And she didn't seem to know about anything, how the station functioned, or the upside down engineering thing. She didn't seem to be aware of any of this. And it's like, were you there for 2 seconds and immediately left? Even if you were, you would still get some sense of how things function. And it wasn't portrayed exactly how it was portrayed in earlier episodes. Before, it was just a bunch of moronic idiots who didn't know what the fuck they were doing, and it was definitely played off for comedy. But in this episode, it was more of eccentric, misfits rather than just idiots who have no right to be in Starfleet. And the only reason I would allow it, and not allow it, but the only reason I'm okay with it is because it's on Lower Decks, which is a comedy show. If I saw any of these characters in any of the serious shows, then that would not be okay. But no, so they didn't do. So they kind of changed the nature of Starbase 80. I feel like they would have to in order to make it, a whole episode about it, and not just a throwaway gag. So there's a couple of Easter eggs in here. The Akamarians. Now, I don't know why they didn't just call them the Gatherers. Now, it's true at the end of the Vengeance Factor, which, by the way, is where they're referenced from. Some people who aren't as big a nerd as I am or haven't seen that episode as many times as I have. I love that episode personally. Might not recognize the Akamarians were the dudes from Vengeance Factor. And these are obviously meant to be like the Gatherers types, because Akamarians consisted of, many different cultures, which again is Star Trek doing planets right, where they should be made up of several cultures. And the Gatherers were more of a moronic pirate faction of the culture that split off from the Akamarians during these bloody clan wars, and the rest of the planet found peace and moved on past it, but they couldn't move past it, and so they left the planet until Picard negotiated a peace, a reassignment to have them reintegrate with society. Now, the way they were portrayed in this episode, they seem to be all gatherers rather than other Akamarians, because they don't look like farmers to me anyway. Do we look like farmers to you? Anyway, so why didn't they just call them gatherers? The thing is that more people would have been able to recognize. I bet you anything, a lot of people who didn't recognize Akamarians, I don't know who the fuck they were. If they said gatherers, they would be like, oh, gatherers, yeah, those dudes from the Vengeance Factor. So I don't know, because there obviously were the gatherers, a faction of the Akamarians, even if their main faction lives on Akamar now. They returned to Akamar 3. There's obviously, the part of them own the space station or whatever, or theirs, so they're not back on Akamar. So why they're obvious from the Gatherers faction, so why not just call them Gatherers? I don't know. And they turned out to be okay. Again, it's giving the false impression that they're ruffians or whatever. But anyway, the other Easter egg I did not catch. I knew it was an Easter egg, but I didn't know where it was from. I had to look it up. Was the anaphasic life form, the anaphasic alien, which was the energy being that took over the whales in Cetacean Ops and caused the whole hubbub with turned everyone to zombies. And at the end, he would said, "My name is Chad" or something. Went and hung out in Starbase 80. It's like, oh no, I'm gonna be friendly. I just wanted to. I was like, what is? I know the way they're talking about this alien. Like, I know it was from a Star Trek episode. But there's been so many with, all these energy beings. I could not remember which one. And so I looked it up, and it's the freaking space ghost that Dr. Crusher was banging in Sub Rosa. Oh my god, learning that makes it way funnier. And I am surprised, because I'm not clear, and I think a lot of other Star Trek fans wouldn't recognize, anaphasic life form from that. And I'm surprised didn't have Boimler or someone else in the episode saying, "Oh, that's the same being that was, having an affair with Dr. Crusher or whatever." That would have been nice if they called that out. It was like in the chat or whatever his name could respond and be like, "Oh no, I'm nothing like that guy. That guy was kind of weird." Like they could have made a joke out of it. It wouldn't just be a ho ho ho. It would actually make sense and would make it funnier, rather than having to go online and look up a Memory Alpha to get the joke to be like, oh, like making a deep cut Easter egg. I think this should have been a more in-your-face Easter egg with that. Especially, you're going to do the Space Ghost that banged Dr. Crusher. Why would you not take advantage of that? That's hilarious. Any chance to make fun of that, you should grab. I'm kind of disappointed in Lower Decks for not taking full advantage of that. Anyway, another Easter egg we got was the doctor who was half taken over by this virus, and he was like, "What? You can tell?" And Boimler, was it Boimler? He was like, "Oh yeah, no, it is kind of visible." I didn't look this one up, but I'm pretty damn sure just from the way he looks that this is the virus seen in Identity Crisis that turned Geordi into a gecko. The Geico Gecko, and it made him beam down to the planet, and it kind of goes against the canon of that episode that someone could be half that. It's either there or it's not, but I don't care, and I'm sure a lot of people can come up with headcanon, maybe it's just physical or whatever. But the whole point of it is the virus is that it turns you into them. There wouldn't be a half. It's either there or it's not. But anyway, regardless, doesn't matter. I don't care. You're wasting your time if you're going to argue that with me, because I'm fine with it. It works for Lower Decks. It's funny for the for the show. But so anyway, yeah, so those were the big Easter eggs or stuff that I had noticed. There's a lot of smaller details, which always is in Lower Decks. I love the scene, for example, when they're back on the Cerritos trying to solve the issue with all the zombies going around chasing them, and they're trapped in the I think it's the lounge cafe or whatever, and they're trying to get out, and Livik had ripped out the door controls, and the door was banging, and and Boimler went Livik, the same way that not Boimler, Mariner said it the same way that Rutherford would say it all the time. I love that. I love that they're making that a running thing every time they see Livik. They go Livik. It's kind of like the whole Newman thing. I do love that they're keeping that one alive, and especially since it was so goofy and out of place. He's a zombie. They're all zombies. So it was kind of silly of Mariner to call Livik out specifically for it, but I loved it. I loved it so much. So And okay, other Easter eggs obviously is the people wearing the uniforms. The main commander of the station was wearing a Discovery era uniform. The engineer was wearing an Enterprise era uniform, and other people were wearing different uniforms. And this goes along with Starbase 80 having antiquated systems, and they had a lot of TOS equipment and stuff like that, and they said, oh, they're really outdated and they don't update this place. So I guess I am willing to give it a little bit of leeway that this is Lower Decks. But this is another thing I totally don't buy, and that Starfleet would have a station that they neglect to this degree. They're, again, post-scarcity society. It's not like they only have so much resources. They have unlimited resources. The one thing I don't buy specifically and will not give a pass to, and I will not hand wave away, and this really bothered me, is that they don't have replicators. Of course they fucking have replicators. Everything is Star. Why wouldn't they have replicators? And the reason is so the episode can happen. So that they could, because if they have replicators, that would solve the majority of their problems. They wouldn't have to be wearing Discovery era uniforms and stuff like that. And they wouldn't have a guy selling corn dogs in the vending or whatever. But there's no reason that a Starfleet base, a star base, wouldn't have fucking replicators in this post-scarcity society that the Federation is. This makes zero sense. It really annoyed me. And the fact that everything was so antiquated and broken down and shit, like, most of that, I'm like, okay, it's Lower Decks and they're making a joke, haha. But it's just, I still don't buy it. It still bothered me. And also, I talked earlier about things that were predictable. One of the most predictable things in the world in this episode was when they, what's-her-face, Freeman and Ransom were looking for, the things, and they go up to this guy who's like, oh, I'm Gene. Like, as soon as they saw him, I was like, that's the chief engineer pretending to be someone else. He was like, oh yeah, the engineer, he's up in the arcade or whatever, and then they keep running into him over and over again. I'm like, yes, that's the chief engineer right there. And then they revealed it. I'm like, yeah, of course it is. Like, that one is not even funny. Like, that one is just dumb. I didn't really care for that. The whole side plot with the Ransom and Freeman. I did have this towards the end when they reveal it was the communicator. And by the way, that I predicted again fairly early on, but I'm thinking most people did. And so when the commander ripped it off of Mariner, it was obvious to me, like, why. But anyway, there was a sense of tension with Freeman and Ransom as, were they going to use their communicators? But they never did. And then the whole scene at the end where she doesn't really know, isn't aware of anything that happened, and they're, trying to chase this giant-ass spider. I don't know. Not spider. Was it a bat? I think it was a bat. Something like that. Yeah, I don't care. that was kind of like, yeah, whatever. One thing I was really highly disappointed in is that the gag where they were like putting on the gel, the Enterprise gel, we saw this in the trailer. I was hoping that this would be part of an Enterprise themed episode because Mike McMahon had talked about in several interviews how, they did a DS9 episode, they did a Voyager episode, and TNG and TOS are interlaced throughout the whole entire show. But the one show that they didn't tackle as much as he wanted to was Enterprise. And he was saying, this is like before they even wrote season 5. He was like, I really would love to do an Enterprise episode. And so when I saw that in the trailer with the gel, I'm like, maybe they're doing like they travel back in time somehow, or they're doing some thing when they're going to meet members of the Enterprise crew. But no, it was just to go into Starbase 80, which makes no sense. And it wasn't, and the whole joke and Ransom like putting the gel on and being all slippy and stuff like that. It's like I was just really disappointed. It wasn't nearly as funny as I hoped it would be. But it is interesting because Lower Decks is the first Star Trek show to make Cetacean Ops and the whales on board canon. I mean, they were in the technical manual in the Next Generation, and Cetacean Ops was referenced in random throwaway lines of dialogue that I never noticed until other people pointed it out to me. But we didn't actually see it and see it make it become a main feature of the ship until this show. And so it's something I talked about before, but it's good to have them be like the main focus. Like they weren't, I don't know, not really main focus, but they were the main MacGuffin in the episode, the thing that was the cause of everything. And I did kind of like that Mariner was thinking, oh, Starbase 80, there's a curse and it's making everyone weird, but the problem actually came from the Cerritos, and it turned out to be, this Dr. Crusher's Space Ghost. Well, not the same one. It wasn't Vernon, but it's the same species. This one's Chad. I think that was his name. I don't really remember. But, that it was, so I liked that it was the Cerritos that was the problem, and I liked that the Cetacean Ops whales were the main focus of it. The mother alien or whatever that they had to defeat. But yeah, I mean, I didn't get that attached to these other characters like the doctor guy or like the fact that he was the last one left and he just smacked it over the head and be like, oh yes, I use these weird medical stuff to do it. But I don't know, whatever with that. I didn't really find it funny or interesting or anything like that. But so it was okay. The problems I have with Starbase 80 and how it shouldn't exist in actual Star Trek canon did somewhat interfere with my enjoyment. It didn't totally overwhelm it the way the whole shit about, oh, we had to sleep in the hallway overwhelmed when I had an episode when Boimler and everyone were fighting over a room. That overwhelmed it for me, and I couldn't enjoy that episode because that whole sleeping in the hallway bullshit is shit. It's bullshit. But the Starbase 80 is also bullshit, but not to that large degree. It doesn't bother me as much, so it didn't actively interfere. It didn't make it impossible for me to enjoy this episode. I'm willing to partly go, okay, this is a comedy show, I'll forgive it, but it did interfere a little bit with my enjoyment. It was always there kind of in the back of my mind. And so it's ultimately just a bunch of a contrivance so they could do the storyline, which is a very, very by-the-numbers plot. So anyway, now I'm wrapping everything up. My rating for, what's this episode? Oh, yeah, obviously this episode's called Starbase 80. Out of 10, it's going to be a 7, very good. Yeah, I didn't know until talking about this episode what rating I would give this, because I quite enjoyed it. I did really like it. I did, as I said, the opening was really funny. You did have some good character moments with Mariner. A lot of the Easter eggs I really appreciated, although I don't know why they didn't just call them gatherers, or why didn't they call out this was Dr. Crusher's Space Ghost like that. That was a missed opportunity, but still, I like the Easter eggs. I think, the gimmick of that it was actually the Cerritos that was infecting them, and that the station was falling apart, and they just wanted some help, and they're actually good people, as predictable it was, that was so predictable. It was still interesting. I still enjoyed it. But, yeah, there's too many contrivances in this episode for me to give it a rating any higher than a 7. Some missed opportunities. Very predictable. Very by-the-numbers cliche plot. Like, that guy Gene is the engineer all along. Yeah, I predicted that as soon as I fucking saw him. And it was just kind of, the whole, Starbase 80 is okay, and it's actually the problem was from the Cerritos. Yeah, that's predictable too. So, it has its, I wouldn't say problems, more of contrivances, I think, is the biggest issue with it, and also, as I said, like, not missed opportunities. Like, they could have done more with the Space Ghost and stuff like that. And I am disappointed we didn't get a full-on Enterprise episode. Now, that doesn't mean it still couldn't happen, but I seriously doubt it now, because the biggest indication in the trailer was that jail scene, and it just turned out to be for this episode, which is kind of throwaway and dumb. But yeah, anyway, 7 out of 10 for this episode. I will say, the season is yet to grab me. I had high hopes for this. It was the final season. I thought they'd really knock something out of the park. Now, granted, they haven't had a terrible episode yet, so I mean, there's that. But they haven't wowed me, and I was expecting to be wowed. Now, there's still 5 episodes left, and I know that Lower Decks tends to be better with his end episodes towards the end of the season, and I fully expect that's going to be the huge letdown disappointment if those episodes don't deliver. But even so, like, even if they do deliver, I am still disappointed that the rest of the season, I mean, it's still good, but it's kind of averagely good, which you could say, previous seasons of Lower Decks done that in the past, but we've had some really good episodes. I know they're less common, but we've had some really good episodes in the early part or the mid part of the season. Like back in season 2, the first 2 episodes were like amazing. They were hilarious, and then the Deep Space Nine episode was episode 6. So, I mean, we could get a great episode 6. That's still next week, but still, yeah. So far, like, I even considering that Lower Decks is a backloaded season tends to be, I still am a little bit disappointed that this season is not delivering more stronger. Like, I think the first part of season 4 was stronger than this, which is a little bit disappointing. But anywho, that is it for my review of Lower Decks. I will be back next week to cover the next episode of Lower Decks as season 5, episode 6. In the meantime, you can check out my channel as I continue to cover Star Trek Next Generation and Star Trek Deep Space Nine, one episode at a time, currently in season 7 of TNG and season 2 of DS9. And I also cover many other shows and stuff on my channel as well, so be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. Thanks a lot for watching.